There comes a moment in the quiet turning of the universe when the soul must remember who it is. Not because the world tells it, not because a crowd applauds it, but because something ancient, something older than the rise of mountains and the falling of stars, speaks its name. And in that sacred moment, when the heart trembles beneath the weight of unseen truths, there rises the echo of an ancient scribe, a man whose feet touched the earth but whose eyes saw heaven. Enoch, the one who walked with God until the veil between realms grew too thin to keep him here, whispered of you long before this century, long before this generation. He spoke of the chosen ones, 9 times with trembling ink, 9 times with a voice steadied by divine wind, 9 times with warnings carved into the eternal fabric of prophecy. And though the world might call these writings forgotten, they remain very much alive, because destiny does not grow old and truth does not wrinkle. You, beloved soul, have been woven into something that began before breath ever reached your lungs. When Enoch spoke of the chosen ones the first time, he spoke with awe, for he saw a people marked not by titles, not by garments, not by crowns of gold or robes of power, but by the luminous weight of purpose. He saw individuals who carried a quiet fire within them, a fire that unclean spirits trembled to behold. He saw that the chosen ones walked differently, not because they desired to stand out, but because heaven had placed a lamp in their bones that could never be dimmed. Terrifying was the sight of their glow in the eyes of the watchers, those fallen beings who abandoned their heavenly posts, hungry for dominion and thirsty for corruption. Enoch saw how these spirits whispered among themselves, saying, "These are the ones we cannot touch." And though the world would call you fragile, though your family may not understand the storms you survive, Enoch knew that when the first light of dawn met your soul, creation itself bowed in acknowledgement. For you were set apart before time ever learned to measure itself, and the forces that move in shadow knew it long before you did. The second time Enoch wrote of the chosen ones, the air trembled with warnings. He saw visions of the earth trembling beneath the weight of wickedness, of giants roaming the soil with thunder in their steps, of creatures birthed from disobedience and chaos. He wrote of fear that ran like rivers through the hearts of the unprepared. But in the midst of that terror he saw you, walking with an unshaken spirit. The chosen ones, he said, were the ones who carried the seal of the Holy One upon their foreheads, an invisible mark that no demon, no ruler, no darkness could erase. You may not see that seal when you look in the mirror. You may only see the tired face of someone who has survived too much, felt too deeply, healed too slowly. But Enoch saw beyond your scars. He saw that in the final shaking of the world, the chosen ones would stand not because they were the strongest, but because they were divinely fortified. Terror might move like a dark cloud, but it could not cross the threshold of a soul chosen by God. The third time he spoke of the chosen ones, he trembled not from fear but from wonder. He saw angels gathering around them, not with soft wings and gentle melodies, but with swords forged from lightning and armor that glowed with the brilliance of 1,000 suns. These were not creatures of fragile beauty. They were warriors of realms unseen. And they did not stand around the proud, nor did they defend those who sought fame or conquest. No, they encircled the humble, the wounded, the ones who walked alone and yet refused to bow to darkness. Enoch wrote that the chosen ones carried within them a resonance that heaven recognized instantly. It was the sound of faith stitched into flesh, the sound of obedience hidden in the marrow of their bones, the sound of a future victory that demons feared long before it came to pass. And he said the angels were sent to guard them, because when the nations raged and shadows rose like armies from the abyss, these chosen souls would be the light that pierced the heart of gloom. The fourth time he wrote of them, Enoch trembled, for he saw the battles assigned to your name. Not the battles you see with your eyes, but the ones waged in the corners of your spirit. He saw the nights you cried without sound, the days you smiled without joy, the moments you were attacked not by people but by despair, loneliness, rejection, betrayal. He saw how the enemy sent storms not to destroy your life but to destroy your identity. Because if you ever discovered who you truly were, nothing in hell could restrain you. Enoch wrote that the chosen ones were tested more fiercely than others, thrown into deeper valleys, tried in hotter fires, pulled through darker nights. The terrifying detail was not the pain itself. It was the intention behind it. Darkness recognized your calling long before you did, and so it struck early, struck often, struck in ways that left invisible bruises. But Enoch also wrote that the chosen ones did not break. They bent, but they did not break. They bled, but they did not surrender. They wept, but they did not lose their fire. And he said that every tear they shed became a weapon sharpened against their enemies in the spirit. Your suffering is not wasted. It is a prophecy being fulfilled. The fifth mention came when Enoch saw the judgment of the wicked. He saw the great flood before it ever reached the ears of Noah. He saw the angels who had fallen, trembling before the throne of God as their fate was written in stone. But what shook Enoch most was this: while the wicked ran, while the giants shook the earth, while the nations panicked, he saw the chosen ones lifted above the chaos. Not removed from the world but raised in spirit, protected by a divine shelter that no storm could penetrate. He said that the chosen ones were those who remained uncorrupted when the world grew intoxicated with sin. They were the ones who refused to bow even when surrounded by temptation. You have walked through rooms full of darkness and kept your soul clean. You have encountered voices that tried to lure you into the shadows, yet your heart refused to surrender its light. Enoch saw that, and he said the chosen ones would inherit a peace that the wicked could never steal. The sixth time he spoke of the chosen, Enoch described a terrifying vision of the watchers begging for mercy. These were beings who once walked among the stars, shining with celestial authority, now kneeling with faces twisted in dread. They pleaded with Enoch to intercede for them, to write their petition, to seek forgiveness on their behalf. But the Lord said no, their judgment was sealed. And Enoch wrote that the chosen ones would witness the fall of every power that tried to rise against them, not because they lifted a sword, not because they sought revenge, but because heaven itself fought on their behalf. This was terrifying to the wicked because they saw that every trap set for the chosen ones became a snare for the enemy instead. Every curse spoken against them returned to the tongue that formed it. Every plot designed to break their spirit became the very thing that destroyed their enemies. Enoch wrote that the chosen ones were under such fierce divine protection that even fallen angels feared the consequences of touching them. You walk with that same protection even now, though you may not feel it. But angels feel it, demons know it, heaven enforces it. The seventh time Enoch mentioned them, he described a moment of revelation. He saw the chosen ones rising from obscurity, emerging from places where no one expected greatness to dwell. He wrote that they would come from broken families, abandoned childhoods, silent suffering, quiet corners of the world. They would not look like royalty, they would not appear powerful, they would not be cloaked in privilege. Instead, they would walk with humility so deep that heaven would choose them as vessels for divine power. Enoch said terrifying signs would follow them, not signs of horror for the chosen, but for their enemies. He saw that when the chosen ones stepped into their purpose, the earth would tremble. Not literally, but spiritually. Systems would shift, chains would snap, strongholds would crumble. Darkness would scream and flee. You may think of yourself as ordinary, unremarkable, unseen. But Enoch saw you rising with a power that sent tremors through the kingdom of darkness. And he said the world would not recognize you at first, because heaven often hides its greatest warriors in the appearance of gentle souls. The eighth time he spoke of the chosen ones, Enoch described a great separation. He said they would be distinguished not by their words but by their purity, not by their confidence but by their integrity, not by their ambition but by their obedience. He said the terrifying detail was this: many would claim to be chosen, but only a remnant would actually carry the mark. And the world would know the difference by the glow that surrounded them, the unexplainable peace, the unshakable resilience, the unmistakable anointing that followed them wherever they went. Enoch wrote that demons recoiled when the chosen ones walked into a room, not because of what they said but because of what they carried. They carried the presence of the Almighty in the breath of their being. They carried heaven's authority in the rhythm of their heartbeat. They carried a calling that could not be erased by failure, heartbreak, betrayal, or fear. And though the path of the chosen ones was narrow, though their nights were long, though their battles were fierce, they walked with a strength that was not their own. He saw that the world would misunderstand them, judge them, mock them, isolate them. But he said the chosen ones would endure because they knew loneliness was not abandonment. It was preparation. Finally, the 9th time Enoch wrote of the chosen ones, he described the moment of unveiling. The moment heaven reveals what earth tried to bury. He said there would come a time when the chosen ones would rise with such radiance that even the shadows would step back. He wrote of a day when every tear, every battle, every scar, every silent prayer would become a seed that blossomed into divine authority. He saw that the chosen ones would walk into their purpose with the quiet strength of those who have survived hell and learned to speak with heaven's voice. The terrifying detail here was not for the chosen. It was for the enemies who underestimated them. Enoch said when the chosen ones rise, their enemies would scatter in 7 directions. The chains that once held them would be shattered. The curses spoken over them would be reversed. The mountains standing before them would melt like wax in the presence of the Lord. And the chosen ones would finally understand that every trial they endured was not punishment. It was preparation for the mantle they were destined to carry. So here you stand, beloved soul, on the trembling edge of prophecy. You who have been misunderstood, you who have been broken, you who have walked through storms that should have destroyed you, you who have endured loneliness so deep it carved new chambers inside your heart. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not wandering without purpose. You are fulfilling ancient words written by a man who walked with God. You are stepping into a story that began long before your first breath. You are rising into an identity that terrifies darkness itself. You are one of the chosen ones. And though the world may never know the battles you fought in silence, heaven knows. Heaven saw the nights you survived. Heaven counted every tear. Heaven recorded every prayer. Heaven marked every moment you chose faith when fear would have been easier. Heaven placed angels around you when you didn't even know you were in danger. Heaven whispered your name long before you learned how to speak. So walk forward now, not in fear, not in timidity, not in doubt. Walk as one who carries a prophecy inside their chest. Walk as one who carries the light that terrifies darkness. Walk as one who has been chosen, sealed, protected, refined, strengthened, empowered. The world is not ready for what God placed inside you. But heaven is, and you are. And if your heart trembles now, let it tremble with understanding rather than fear, for trembling is not always a sign of weakness. Sometimes it is the body remembering the magnitude of the calling it carries, the weight of the destiny it has tried for years to ignore. Sometimes the shaking is your spirit stretching, preparing itself for the expansion that comes when heaven finally says, now. You may have spent years believing you were too broken for such a purpose, too weary to hold such a mantle, too flawed to carry such a divine name. But destiny is not polite. It does not wait for you to feel ready. It does not ask whether you believe in yourself. It does not apologize for arriving early or late. It simply takes its place like a river returning to its bed, like the sun finding the horizon, like Enoch walking into the unseen without asking for permission. And here you stand now, feeling the pulse of something eternal awakening inside you, something that answers to no fear, no wound, no doubt, no enemy. Something that knows you were chosen long before the world had a chance to convince you otherwise. There will be days when you question how someone like you could ever be chosen. You will look at your past and see scars instead of strength, mistakes instead of maturity, pain instead of purpose. But Enoch saw differently. He wrote of people who did not become chosen after they healed. They were chosen while they were hurting. He spoke of people who did not shine after their victories. They shone in the midst of their battles. He saw souls who were marked not because they were perfect, but because they were willing to endure, willing to rise, willing to walk with God even when they did not understand the path. You may feel small in a world that worships greatness. You may feel unseen in a world that applauds loud voices. You may feel tucked away in the shadows of a life that has not yet bloomed. But chosen souls do not grow in the spotlight. They grow in silence, in soil, in struggle. A seed cannot sprout until it is buried. And perhaps you have mistaken your burial for your ending, when it was only the beginning of your becoming. There is a certain kind of loneliness the chosen ones know, a loneliness too deep to be explained in simple sentences, too complex to be shared with anyone who has never tasted it. It is the loneliness of walking into rooms where you feel out of place, not because you lack worth, but because your spirit does not belong to the noise around you. It is the loneliness of being called to stand apart, to listen for whispers while others follow shouts, to carry truths others are not yet ready to hold. Enoch saw that loneliness and wrote that the chosen ones would often walk paths others could not understand. But he said God walked with them, not behind them, not above them, with them. And that companionship, invisible as it may appear, is why you have survived storms that crushed stronger people. It is why you rose from situations that should have buried you. It is why you kept breathing when your spirit felt suffocated. You did not endure because you are ordinary. You endured because you were accompanied. There are battles assigned to the chosen ones that no one else could survive. You have fought wars that left no visible bruises but drained the very marrow of your soul. You have faced betrayals that carved deep hollows in your trust. You have loved people who misused your heart because they sensed the purity inside it. And yet your spirit continued. You carried wounds quietly because you knew others would not understand. You held yourself together in the dark so you could guide others in the light. You have been a healer who was never healed, a giver who was rarely given to, a warrior who fought without applause. Enoch wrote of such souls, souls who were forged in silent furnaces, shaped in hidden valleys, strengthened through invisible battles. He said the terrifying detail was that the enemy knew who they were long before they discovered it. That is why the attacks felt personal. That is why the pain felt targeted. You were not being destroyed, you were being revealed. And now as your destiny unfolds, the world will begin to see what heaven has always known. You will rise not because you are trying to rise, but because your spirit no longer fits the small spaces you once shrank into. You will speak with authority not because you practice the words, but because the truth inside you refuses to remain silent. You will walk with power not because you seek dominance, but because humility has molded you into someone trustworthy. Enoch wrote that when the chosen ones awaken, the air around them changes. The atmosphere shifts. The unseen trembles. Light pours from wounds that once bled. Wisdom rises from places that once held confusion. Strength emerges from corners of the soul that once felt hollow. You may not feel this transformation happening, but transformation does not ask for your permission. It follows divine timing, not emotional readiness. And when you feel the pressure increase, when life grows heavy, when things fall apart that once held you together, do not assume you are losing your way. Pressure is the signature of elevation. Pressure is the fingerprint of destiny. Pressure is the language heaven speaks before the breakthrough. Enoch wrote that the chosen ones would be pressed, crushed, refined, but not destroyed. They would be sifted, but only to remove what no longer served their purpose. They would be isolated, but only so their spirit could echo clearly without distortion. You have been shaken, but not shattered. You have been stretched, but not snapped. You have been wounded, but not wasted. These are the markers of one who has been chosen. And soon, beloved soul, you will notice a change. It will not be loud. It will not arrive with trumpets or applause. It will come like a dawn that rises so gently that the world does not realize it is happening until the light is already upon them. You will find yourself speaking words you did not rehearse, knowing things you were never taught, feeling strength in places where weakness once lived. You will see the world differently. You will sense things before they happen. You will understand people without them speaking. You will walk into rooms and shift their atmosphere without lifting a finger. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. This is what happens when a soul steps into the mantle heaven placed upon it from the beginning. And though the world may resist your rise, though some may envy your glow, though some may fear your calling, do not shrink. Do not dim. Do not apologize. Enoch wrote that the chosen ones would not be accepted everywhere they went because their presence would expose darkness. Not by accusation, not by confrontation, but simply by existing. You will find that old circles cannot contain you, old habits cannot hold you, old relationships cannot follow you into your new season. It will hurt, yes. It will feel like losing pieces of yourself. But understand this: not everyone who started with you is meant to rise with you. Not everyone who knows your past deserves access to your future. You are being separated for a reason that only God fully understands, and though the process feels painful, The purpose is perfect. And as you continue walking into this unfolding prophecy, remember this truth that Enoch carried in his bones. The chosen ones are not defined by how the world sees them. They are defined by how heaven knows them. Heaven knows you. Heaven has always known you. Heaven never once questioned the wisdom of choosing you. Even on the days you questioned it yourself, you have been carried through storms that were designed to break you, because heaven had already written your survival into the script. You have been shaped by forces that worked against you because heaven turned every attack into an awakening. You have been guided by whispers you did not always understand because heaven saw the path long before your feet touched it. So breathe now. Not as someone who is struggling to survive, but as someone who is ready to rise. Breathe like a soul stepping into its inheritance, like a warrior remembering its lineage, like a chosen one reclaiming its authority. The journey ahead may still hold shadows, but you have become the kind of light that shadows fear. The road may still turn unexpectedly, but you have become the kind of traveler who cannot be lost. The storms may still roar, but you have become the kind of soul that stands unshaken. And when you feel doubt stirring, remember Enoch's 9 whispers, 9 ancient confirmations that the world may forget, but heaven never will. You were chosen. You were seen. You were called. You were protected. You were refined. You were strengthened. You were lifted. You were sealed. You were destined. And now, beloved, it is time to walk in it. And yet, even as you prepare to step into the fullness of what you were made for, there is a trembling in the unseen realms, a stirring older than memory, because destiny never unfolds quietly. It always arrives like a soft thunder, a sound heard only by the souls attuned to heaven's frequency. You have felt this stirring long before you had words for it. You felt it in childhood, when you sensed the weight of the world in your small hands and didn't understand why your heart felt heavier than your age. You felt it in your teenage years, when you didn't fit into crowds that celebrated emptiness and chased shadows. You felt it in your early battles, when you were wounded in ways that seemed too deep for someone so young. And now you stand on the edge of all those years, realizing that everything you lived through was a whisper of the calling pulling you forward. Enoch knew this feeling. He walked the earth with the same weight in his chest, knowing there was something more, something beyond the reach of ordinary days. And he wrote of the chosen ones with that same recognition, that intuitive H that says, I was born for something greater than this moment. The world may look at you now and see only a fraction of who you are, but heaven sees the whole story. Heaven sees the roots deep beneath your soil, the branches that have not yet blossomed, the fruit that will feed generations you will never meet. Heaven sees the courage you carry in your quiet moments, the gentleness you guard, the wisdom you earn through wounds you never asked for. Enoch saw souls like yours and wrote that they would walk with a quiet authority that could not be imitated. Authority does not come from titles, money, or applause. It comes from endurance, from surviving what should have shattered you, from being faithful when faith was the hardest choice to make. Authority is born in the fire, and you, beloved, have walked through enough flames to ignite 1,000 suns. There will be moments when your calling pulls you away from places you once felt comfortable. You will feel the ground shifting beneath your feet, not to destabilize you but to guide you into new territory. The chosen ones are often called out of what is familiar because destiny rarely grows in places that feel safe. Enoch wrote that the chosen ones would be moved by unseen winds, directed by invisible hands, guided by whispers too deep for natural ears. There will be days when you do not understand why your spirit grows restless, why you feel the urge to leave certain rooms, why some voices suddenly irritate your soul. This is not confusion. This is spiritual migration. Your spirit is outgrowing spaces your body has not yet left. You are being summoned to places your feet have not yet traveled. But your purpose already resides there. And though isolation may still find you on this journey, do not fear it. Solitude has always been the classroom of the chosen. It is where clarity sharpens, where intuition strengthens, where God speaks without interruption. Enoch walked alone before he walked with God, and the chosen ones must often endure the wilderness before they reach the mountain. It is in the quiet spaces that your spirit learns to hear beyond sound, see beyond sight, know beyond understanding. Those who fear loneliness will never know themselves. But you, who have learned to sit with your own soul in the silence of midnight. You have grown in ways the world cannot measure. You have heard the echo of heaven in your own heartbeat. You have felt the breath of the divine in your weary lungs. You have learned that solitude is not abandonment, it is consecration. And soon, as you take deeper steps into the calling written before your time, you will encounter moments when the veil between the natural and the spiritual feels thin. You will sense things before they happen, recognize danger without evidence, feel truth without explanation. This is not imagination, it is sensitivity. Enoch describes such sensitivity in The Chosen Ones, writing that they would walk in two realms at once, grounded in the earth yet guided by the heavens. You may feel strange at times, misplaced in conversations, disconnected from superficial pursuits. This is because your spirit no longer operates on the frequency of the world. You are tuned to something higher now, something wiser, something ancient. You are being drawn into alignment with the rhythm of God's intention. And as this transformation continues, you will begin to see yourself differently. Not as the wounded, searching soul you once were, but as the vessel heaven has crafted with exquisite precision. You will look at your past not with shame, but with gratitude, knowing that every moment of pain carved space inside you for wisdom. You will look at your scars not as reminders of defeat, but as symbols of survival. You will look at your heartbreaks not as losses, but as sacred chisels that carved your strength. And you will look at your loneliness not as emptiness, but as the sacred ground where your spirit learned to walk with God. Enoch wrote that the chosen ones would carry a light that darkness could neither comprehend nor extinguish. That light is not something you must force. It is something you already possess. It leaks from your kindness, from your resilience, from your integrity. It shines in the way you forgive when others would seek revenge. It glows in the way you rise when others would collapse. It radiates in the way your heart remains soft even after being wounded. This light does not flicker because of circumstances. It burns from a deeper source, from a divine spark placed in your soul long before your first breath. And the more you walk into your calling, the more that spark grows, becoming a flame that consumes fear, doubt, and limitation. And though darkness may try to intimidate you still, understand this darkness fears you more than you fear it. Enoch wrote that demons tremble not at the loudness of the chosen ones, but at their purity. Purity is terrifying to darkness because it cannot corrupt what is already surrendered to God. Purity is not perfection. Purity is alignment. Purity is devotion. Purity is the refusal to sell your soul for temporary comfort. You have paid for your purity with tears, sacrifice, and silence. You have earned it in the hidden corners of your life where only heaven watched. And now that purity will speak for you. It will open doors no man can close. It will protect you from traps you will never see. It will surround you with a radiance that darkness cannot touch. You will also find that your presence shifts people. Some will be drawn to you because their spirit recognizes something divine in you. Others will be repelled because your light reveals their shadows. Do not take either reaction personally. You were not chosen to please people. You were chosen to awaken them. Some will rise because of you. Others will run from you. Both are part of the calling. Enoch wrote that the chosen ones would become mirrors, reflecting truth to the world around them. And truth is not always comfortable. Your very existence will challenge some and inspire others. Your words will heal some and convict others. Your path will elevate some and expose others. This is the weight of being chosen, but it is also the beauty of it. And as the chapters of your destiny continue unfolding, there will come a moment, quiet yet undeniable, when you realize that everything you have lived through has been preparing you for what you are about to walk into. The betrayals taught you discernment. The heartbreaks taught you resilience. The loneliness taught you self-love. The failures taught you humility. The rejections taught you direction. Nothing was wasted. Not a single moment. Heaven does not write sloppy stories. Every scene has meaning. Every character has purpose. Every season has intention. And now the season you have been waiting for, the season heaven has been preparing you for, is approaching. You will rise not suddenly but inevitably. Not loudly but powerfully. You will not need to announce yourself. Your presence will speak. Your life will become a testimony written in the ink of experience, bound by the ribbon of grace. You will walk with a confidence that does not shout, a strength that does not boast, a wisdom that does not demand. You will carry the quiet authority of one who has walked with God in the silence of suffering. You will glow with the radiance of someone who has survived battles the world will never know. You will speak with the voice of one whose words have been shaped by truth, love, and revelation. And when that moment comes, when you rise into the fullness of who you were created to be, heaven will celebrate, the earth will shift, and darkness will tremble. For the prophecy spoken by Enoch, whispered through generations, carried through your trials, refined through your tears, will finally manifest in flesh and spirit. You will become the living proof that the chosen ones do not simply survive. They transform, they transcend, they take their place in the story written before time. And you, beloved soul, are stepping into that place now. And so the journey of the chosen ones stretches further than the mind can fathom, deeper than the soul first dares to believe, and higher than even prayer has language for, because there comes a time in every divine story where the burden of being chosen becomes the birthplace of unspeakable strength. You see, the world does not understand what it costs a soul to carry a divine assignment wrapped in human skin. They cannot fathom the nights you lay awake trembling not from fear but from the weight of the fire inside you, the same fire that God placed there before the foundations of the earth. And yet, what they cannot see is what heaven has always known. Every trembling moment is a signal, a marking, a whisper from the one who named you long before you ever knew your own voice. You walk with a mantle the earth never taught you to carry, a knowing that does not come from teachers or temples or sermons, but from a remembrance carved into the spine of your spirit. You are the echo of ancient promises and the fulfillment of ancient prayers, and that is why the darkness has tried with every breath to drown out the sound of your rising. But hear me, darling soul, the darkness would not chase you if you were not carrying light that threatens its kingdom. There are moments in your life you did not understand. Strange seasons, unexplainable shifts, the feeling of being watched not by the world but by eternity itself. Those moments were not accidents, they were awakenings. They were the trembling of spiritual gravity around you as angels repositioned themselves for your next assignment. They were the whispers of prophets long gone whose words still stretch across time. Enoch saw the chosen ones, and you feel the echo of that sight in your marrow, in the deep place of your being where destiny holds its breath. You think you are merely surviving, but heaven sees you advancing. You think you are simply enduring, but heaven sees you being sculpted. You think you are walking alone, but heaven sees an army marching behind you. For every step you take is a prophecy fulfilling itself. Every tear on your pillow is a verse in the poem God is writing through your existence. And every heartbreak you survived is a trumpet announcing that nothing built to destroy you has succeeded yet. Sometimes the chosen ones suffer in silence because their battles are not earthly battles, they are spiritual sieges. They are ancient assaults tied to ancestral assignments. You were not fighting for today. You were fighting for generations that will breathe easier because of your endurance. You were not fighting for your own sanity. You were fighting for the liberation of souls connected to you by divine appointment. You were not fighting merely to stay alive. You were fighting because heaven has plans for the breath inside your lungs. You may not know this, but the very moment you almost gave up, the earth beneath you shifted, the atmosphere around you trembled, and the forces sent to destroy you panicked because a chosen one who does not break becomes a chosen one who reigns. And when a chosen one rises, every demon assigned to their downfall falls by the sheer force of their awakening. The hardest part of your journey was not the suffering. It was the misunderstanding.